Are we back? Looks like we're back. Okay, I'm back, but it's a different stream. Hopefully, people will be able to find me. I'm restarting the stream. So I'll just say hello again, everybody. This is Derek, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming miniature fiasco. And I'm using OBS, and OBS started to give me these red messages saying that it wasn't putting out any content. And then YouTube started saying it wasn't receiving enough content. And so basically, I just restarted my computer. And now it looks like everything is working a-okay. So hopefully, we'll be okay. Um, yeah, so today, I mean, I was planning on doing a Land of the Free live stream, playing Land of the Free on the table. But like I said in the first version of this video, before we got so rudely uh, disconnected, um, I spent the last day or two breaking down a bunch of boxes because I have a ton of boxes. And I've got all them broken down, plus a lot of the packing paper. I've got a lot of that packed away in a box and basically just cleaned up the entire table. And then once I got that done, or I should say in the middle, I kind of alternated back and forth what I was doing. I got all my flock put away into the shaker bottles. So once I got all those done, then once I got all the flock put into the shaker bottles, then there was no time to make a set up the table and play, and I just didn't feel like it. So we'll probably do that in a following next week, probably. Maybe Monday or something. Okay, so I'm currently today painting some American GIs from World War II. Painting them pretty much traditional. Please bear with me as we get these guys painted. I started on them probably about an hour ago while I was getting everything set up for the live stream. I took a little bit of I got set up early enough that I figured I could just start painting. But because I had scheduled the live stream at 9 o'clock, I didn't want to turn my camera on too early. So I can tell that that paint is a little thick. Let's just add a drop of water so that it'll flow a little bit better. So what I'm using is Army Painter's US Gators Brown on, guess what? The Gators. I don't really have a whole lot to say other than I was also wanting to live stream a brainstorming session going over working out some of the kinks for marshals and generals. But I'm not going to do that. Well, I will do it, but just not today, not on this stream. So some of you are aware that I run Pendragon from Chaosium on Roll20. And I have 2 veteran players, meaning I've played with them in the past. They've never played Pendragon. And then 2 other players that I don't know that have played Pendragon. And last night, we lost one of the players that I've never played with before. And there is kind of a story that goes along with that. As far as I can tell, I just want to start this off by saying, as far as I can tell, the guy that quit last night is a good guy. He's from what I can tell, he seemed like he was very knowledgeable of the game and wanted to be helpful. In the first game, the first session, before the first game, when we were making characters actually, I told him I don't want him quoting rules ever. Ever. If I'm making a mistake, or if I'm doing something that's not written in the rules, just let it happen. And concentrate on your character and your your role playing. Concentrate on how your character interacts with other characters and things like that. Don't worry about the game mechanics, the die rolls, or anything like that. And everybody said okay. And then a couple of weeks ago, he started quoting the rules in the middle of the session. And I told him, I said, okay, thank you for the assist, but don't do that again. Don't quote the rules. I might want to do it a specific way. I might want to violate the rules. I have a specific way that I want to do it. And don't get upset if it's not the way you're used to or whatever. Just play your character. Okay. And then last week, he said that he didn't realize we were playing every Thursday night, even though we had already played 2 sessions back to back. So I think that might have been just an honest mistake. No big deal. I'm not stressed over that at all. And then this week, last night, we were playing a phase in the game, a sub game in the game called the Feast. And I had never run a feast before, not using these rules anyway. And I was running them, and I think I was actually honestly making some mistakes, but I was learning the rules as I was running the feast with the characters. And at the start of the feast, I said, you have an appearance characteristic that will determine how many feast cards you get. And he honestly asked a question like, does that include the modifiers we get during the feast? And I said in plain English, no. FYI, that is not what it says in the rules. In the rules, it says yes. And then I told him, I said, that's not the way I'm running it. I'm running it like this. And he was like, quiet, didn't say anything. And there was a few instances that he said, your modifier should be this or should be that. And I'm sitting there in front of my computer looking up the table that tells you what the modifier is. So I'm working on this, right? And he just comes out and says, this is what it is. And I mentioned to him in the game, I was like, don't run my game for me. Let me look it up. Let me make my own mistakes. Let me figure this out. And he was like, okay, no problem. And then we got ready to go to the second course of the feast, which I backpedaled and said, okay, we're not going to draw all these cards. Mainly, I thought to myself, this is going to take all night if we go through all these cards. I'm going to, I basically made a decision midway through the night. I said, okay, I'm going to go basically by the book to speed this process up. So that's going on in my head. But I tell them, I say, okay, I made a mistake. You draw multiple cards, but you you draw one. You draw, yeah, like if you have a 3, you're supposed to draw, right? I say you draw one, and you choose whether or not you want to do it or not. And if you don't, then we draw the second card, and you choose if you want to do it or not. And if you don't, we'll draw the third card, and then you're stuck with that one, right? That's the card you have to stick with, whatever the last one is. And then he says, well, isn't it supposed to be that you draw 3 cards and you just pick one that you want to do? Which sounds good, but that's not actually how it's written. But that was him pushing back against the referee, thinking he knows best, right? And first of all, he shouldn't even be quoting the rules, right? Okay. So that kind of got under my skin a little bit at that time. At that time, I was like, oh no, this guy, man, I just can't, he just can't stop. He can't help himself. He has to interject. So basically, I had to say to him, that's not how I'm doing it. I'm doing it like it's written in the rule book. And then he was quiet. And then the course came out, right? The second course. And when the second course comes out, the whole card drawing thing happens all over again. And I kept all the numbers the same. You know, if you had 3 cards, you had 3 cards. If you had 2 cards, you had 2 cards. With no modifiers, no modifying the starting numbers. And he says, well, aren't we supposed to modify our numbers based on the results of what happens during the cards? And I just stopped talking. I held my breath. I stared off blankly into my monitor because that was the last straw. Because if you remember, at the very beginning of the feast, I said, that's not the way we're doing it. You're getting so many cards, and it won't be modified. And then he says, well, if you're not doing it that way, it's okay. That was like twisting the knife. I didn't say anything. I didn't scold him or push back and say, why are you trying to run my game? Nothing like that. I just stared there quietly. And then I thought to myself, I have to get out of this game, or I'm going to do something that I'm going to regret. That's what was going through my mind. I said, I don't want to rage quit, just turn my computer off and scream or something like that. So I said, what can I do? What can I do? This is what was going through my head. I said, you know what? I started tonight's session telling everybody that I wasn't feeling well. Let me lean into that a little bit. I said, guys, I'm not feeling too well. I'm going to have to end the game a little early. I'm sorry. I have to go run to the bathroom. I've got diarrhea. And I'll see everybody next week. And I'm sorry that we're ending the game session a little early. And I was very proud of myself. I was like, yeah, maybe they bought it. Maybe you know. And then I thought to myself, I'll just talk to this guy privately during the week, being really nice to him, telling him that, you know, I understood he was just trying to help and everything. And I appreciate, you know, his goodwill or his good gestures. And then just try to tell him that, you know, I don't want that. I want you to play the game, play your character and not the game. I want you to play your emotions and your interactions with other characters and not rely on playing the game mechanics. Be an actor. Don't be a rules lawyer. That's what I wanted to tell him. You know, I said, okay, I'll warn him and I'll tell him, you know, what I'm expecting. This time it would be like the third time telling him. I'll tell him what I expect, and then think to myself, if it ever happens again, then maybe I'll kick him out of the game or something. You know, this is what was going through my mind. I can't take it anymore. You know, if it happens again, I'll just get rid of him. You know, because why do I need to go through this stress? Um, for him, I thought to myself, you know, I put all this effort into this game, creating tokens and making all these NPC characters and doing the history deep dive and all that. I said, I don't think he appreciates that. So then I wait about 10 minutes while fuming, and then I log back in. I go to Discord because that's where we do all of our chatting and our voice comes over Discord. I log back into Discord, and before I even have a chance to do anything, I see that he dropped me a private message. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe he's apologizing or saying, I understand, you know, I didn't mean to offend you or something like that, right? But that's not what it said. First thing he said was, I played with you guys. I think you guys are all a bunch of good guys. But I think I'm going to drop out of the game. And he pretty much left it at that. He said, well, no, that's not really true. He added one more thing. He said, I was just trying to help. And I was, okay, cool, he's trying to help. That's kind of the feeling that I was getting. And the dropping out of the game was kind of a open-ended, like, I think I might drop out of the game kind of statement. I was just trying to help. So I typed in this long reply. Not really. It's a couple of sentences that says, I might have been overly sensitive. I'm not feeling well. Um, it was affecting my mood. So, which basically it was. And any little thing could set me off. And I understand you were just trying to help. So, if you do wind up leaving the game, I hope you can find another referee that plays like you want him to play. You know, I said, or you could run a game. Have you ever thought about running a game yourself? And I think the answer to that is no, because he doesn't want to put all that effort into it, which I can fully understand. So I said, if you do wind up running a game, let me know. I'd be interested in maybe playing. Just think about me. And if not, then I hope you can find a referee that's gonna that plays the way you want to play. And then I hit send, and it popped up giving me an error message saying that it can't be delivered because the person I'm sending it to is no longer on my server. I was like, damn. So I went to the server and I noticed that he was no longer a member of our server. And I was like, oh, okay, well. And then I went to Roll20 where his character would be. And he's no longer logged into our game. Right? So he did a thorough bail out of the system, which I respect. That's cool. Okay, this looks like it's a boot all the way up. It looks like it's laced up on the front. I'm not going to mess with that. That looks like boots. Um, so what I did was, at that point, I told the other players. Well, I basically put it into our Pendragon chat in Discord. I said, he's leaving the game. And this is what I said to him, or I tried to say to him, but he bailed on the server, so he's probably never going to get this message. And I can tell you, I was relieved when he said when I saw the fact that he said he was thinking about quitting. My mind immediately went to joy because I didn't have to deal with scolding him or threatening to kick him out of the game if he didn't get into line. Basically, I was like, whew, boy, that's a load off my mind. I don't have to do anything. He's already bailed on us. there was something else going on during the game, not related, but the same person and the same, and there was an activity in the game that that rubs me the wrong way. It rubs. I don't know if you know anything about me. If you know anything about Derek and my morals and my concept of good and evil and right and wrong and all that, which some of you might not. Some of you might not understand where I'm coming from. But I like to think of myself, and I could be wrong, because what do they say? You always think better of yourself than you really are, or something like that. But I think of myself as a morally strong person, someone that knows the difference between right and wrong. All right. Now, I also know from personal experience what it would mean. Today it wouldn't mean anything. But at the time, a few years ago, I was pursuing knighthood. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Society for Creative Anachronisms, but it's a medieval organization that you can obtain knighthood through your actions and it's a long process. I mean, you can't just come out and say, I want to be knighted, and then check a bunch of boxes, and then all of a sudden you're knighted. That's not the way it is. You have to show through your actions that you're worthy of knighthood, but you also have to kind of let them know that you're interested in becoming a knight. And you do that by asking a knight to take you on as a squire. They don't have to. They're not obligated to do this. But maybe they like you. You've talked to them. You've dealt with them for years as not a squire of theirs, but maybe just a friend. And then you approach them and say, Sir, not appearing in this film, I would really love to become your squire. I think that would be awesome. And then maybe you can show me what I need to do to become a knight. Okay, so as soon as you do that, as soon as he accepts you as a squire, that tells the voting block, all the other knights, that you're a candidate. And then they pay attention to you. And they evaluate you in their own way, whatever that might be. They don't tell you. Some of them think that you should be a really good fighter. Some of them think that you should always help the ladies. Some of them think that you should always help the crown. And everybody's got something a little bit different. And your knight should guide you in how and what you need to do. All the different things that might earn you knighthood. Okay. I got sidetracked a little bit. But I was a squire for a knight. And everybody knew I wanted to become a knight. Some of the knights even came to me and asked me why. Like, why do you want to become a knight? Etc. And okay, so the reason why I share that is because for me and for all my squire friends that I had and the knights that I knew, it was a very big deal to become a knight, right? Because basically what the rest of the knights are saying to you is you've impressed them. You know, you've done all the things you need to do, and you know they accept you into their ranks as a brother. You know, you are worthy of becoming a knight and all that, right? Okay, so it's a very big deal for someone to become a knight. Okay, so because he missed this player, this troublesome player, because he missed last week, and he only missed 90% of our game session, because he showed up in the first few minutes and said that he was on his mobile device, and that he would need me to do all the movement of his token and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that's no problem at all. I'd be glad to do it. I would very much do that for you. That's not even something you have to ask. I'd be glad to do it. But then we got into the fight, and I asked him something, and then I realized he wasn't even in the game. And the other player said, oh, he dropped out about 10 minutes ago. And I was like, what the hell? And then this week I asked him, I said, what happened? He said, yeah, he lost signal. He couldn't get back in. That's bullshit. And I say that because there's no reason why you couldn't get back in. Now, if he said, I made other plans, I wasn't really expecting to play that night, I thought we were playing every other week, I would be like, no problem. Go do what you got to do. Life comes first. Just remember that we're playing every week. You know, that's all I wanted. But he said, yeah, I got disconnected and I couldn't log back in. I'm like, uh-huh. But that's not the problem. That I it was just one thing after another. They just kept adding up. Okay, so tonight, or last night, we're in the feast. The whole night was in the feast, by the way. We only played like 2 hours. If we played another hour or so, the feast would have been over with. But we didn't, so we're still locked into the feast. But it was before the feast. Right? Because he missed last week, I said, okay, you missed last week. Everybody got knighted. It's a very big deal. So what I'll do, because it's such a big deal, it's a monumental occasion. It only happens once to your character. we're going to go through the knighting ceremony. So the first thing in the knighting ceremony is you conduct a vigil. Now, if you're not familiar with the real life knighting ceremony, a vigil is not it's not to be taken lightly. It is your person alone or with others quietly in contemplation of all the things you've done in your life to get to where you're at. Right? You remember all the good things, you remember all the bad things. Normally it's done in a chapel or a church or something like this. It doesn't have to be, but normally it is. And Christians, which if you remember, not everybody's a Christian, but Christians would, if they thought to themselves, man, I really did this villager bad one day, because you're spending the whole night awake thinking about all the things you've done. And you say, man, I really should have helped that guy out. And so then you pray to whoever you believe in for either forgiveness or understanding or whatever. And so, but normally it's a Christian thing, right? And the RPG Pendragon wants to be neutral when it comes to religion. In the game, there are pagan knights and there are Christian knights. And of course, this guy has a pagan knight. I mean, it's just, he wants to be different, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with him being a pagan knight. I'm telling him that there's no hostility between the Church of Christ and the pagans. They might have different opinions and different ways of going about doing things, but there's no open hostilities. In real life, there would be. It would be very hard for a Christian knight to be friends with a pagan, right? It can happen. Don't get me wrong, it can happen, but it would be hard. But in the game, it's not hard because the game designer doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But the pagan knights are still required to stand vigil before they're knighted. Now, because he's a pagan, he's going to have a different thought process going through his head during this vigil. And I ask him, because in the game book it says, ask the player. He's either doing one or the other, and based on which one he chooses will determine which skill he gets a check on. So I asked him, I said, are you praying to your God, not Jesus or whatever, to the pagan gods? Are you praying, or are you just going through the motions? Right? Are you thinking about your life, good or bad, or are you just sitting there because it's what's expected of you? And his answer was a third answer. He said, oh, I'm not doing either one of those. Got my interest up. I was like, oh, what could he possibly be talking about? He's like, I'm just going to sit there and I'm not going to pray or think about anything. I'm just going to be blank. And okay, no problem. So what you're telling me is you're just going through the motions. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's not praying. He's not thinking about his life. He's just going through the motions because that's what is expected of him. And he again said, no, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just going to do nothing. And I was like, well, that is going through the motions. That's the definition of it. And he basically became quiet. But that alone right there told me what kind of a person he is. Not necessarily what kind of person he's trying to play, even though I allowed it and I took it as his character, not his real personality. I think that this is, now looking back on it, I'm like, no, he's just like this. But at the time I was like, okay, he's playing a pagan and he doesn't want to pray. Even though the pagans probably are more religious than the Christians. They have all the old religions. Praying to the nature or whatever, which he could have said that. He could have said, I'm just going to think about my pagan religion or something. But he didn't. He just said, I'm being blank. And I'm like, Okay. And the game accounts for that. Some people taking it seriously and others taking it kind of offhanded, not really caring. And I kind of was a little insulted personally because of my personal quest to become a knight. I was like, this guy really doesn't give a shit. I wanted to ask him, why are you playing this game? This game is about the Arthurian legends, first of all, which involve knights that go on epic quests and interact with pagans but knighthood is one of the most important things that will ever happen to this character. And he was like, I don't care. I was like, okay. At the time, I wanted to ask him, why are you playing this game? You know what kind of game it is? What makes you want to play it? You know? You don't want to be a knight? Is that it? And in the game, there's no way to play like a cleric, a thief, a wizard, nothing like that. That's not the kind of game it is. It's basically the same kind of game that I tried to make my Harn game. My Harn game, the players were all knights and they went on an epic quest. Okay, we got a chat. What do we got going on here? Give me a sec to switch my glasses. We got, you're wrong. Oh, okay, I'm wrong. No. Or you're wrong because that's your name. Okay, pagan is just a derogatory term from Christians for non-Christian religions. Also, Arthurian myth is heavily influenced by pagan cultures. It's not just Christian. Yeah, okay. I'll concede all those points. First of all, I didn't try to imply that pagan was Christian. First of all, I never tried to imply that, and I understand that the time of the Arthurian legends takes place approximately 500 or so, and Christianity is not it's probably not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not 100%. You know, everybody is not a Christian. There's a lot of pagans. Look at Merlin. He's not a Christian. He would be considered a pagan. You know, he believes in the old religions, you know. And yeah, so yeah, I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is I'm talking about this player. I'm not really talking about the yeah. And there's a couple of other things that he was doing that and I'm venting right here while I'm painting, so I'm filling dead air. Um, in the game of Pendragon, um, it's assumed that you are Christian, but there is the option of playing a pagan. Okay, um, so they give you that as an option, but it's not assumed. They assume that you're playing a Christian. So, but that's okay. They make it open ended, so you can play either side. It doesn't matter, or either religion. They try to keep the game agnostic so that you can be whatever you want to be, and it'll fit into their narrative and all that. That's fine. Okay. Okay, I've got a pale green here from Mig that I'm going to paint about half of these guys with the pale green. But I'm going to definitely paint them in teams so that they're not like when I go to sell these, because these are all for sale. When I go to sell them, I'm not going to have a wool with the herringbone twill, right? Even though I think that probably would be okay, I think units are pretty much issued based on the unit, so I'm going to try to keep them separate. It's not going to hurt anything to separate them, and it makes it easier for me to do it that way. Yeah, so two more things. One thing gave me a red flag, right? And I've been at first I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. This is like he's gone above and beyond. Like, oh, that's my first impression was, wow, okay, that's really really cool. But my inner thought was telling me, and I was ignoring it, was telling me this is a red flag. And I was like, and I haven't told you what it is yet, but I I was like, okay, now that he's quit and we basically got rid of him. I didn't get rid of him, he got rid of himself. Yeah, this is a perfect color for the herringbone twill. I'm very happy with myself. I had multiple greens out, and I was gonna cycle through them and try to figure out which one was the best. This one seems to be just right. I won't even have to cycle through. But my generosity was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Saying, "Oh, this is really cool," and he went above and beyond, and I wish all my players did this, and that was what initially went through my head. But my subconscious was telling me this is a red flag, and what I'm talking about is the font. I know it's something super stupid, but the font he used for his character name. He remember he was a pagan, and after generating our background and all that stuff, he came up with a really cool idea that he's from a foreign land, visiting, or, his father went on crusade and maybe pillaged a little bit too hard. And he came back with his father. And all of that fits in just perfect with the campaign. But he said he had already made the name before we generated his backstory and everything, which is what I ask my players to do, is generate a name first. And he used this strange font, right? I could tell it was Viking or Scandinavian or something like that. Runic, it was almost runic. And I was like, that is really cool. I dig it. I think that is really, really cool. But looking back on it, I'm like, that just tells me that I don't know, after the fact, it made me think that was too far. I was thinking, okay, he's just a fun-loving guy, and he wants to use a runic language to represent his name on his character sheet or something like that. I'm like, okay, totally cool. But I should have trusted my gut and say, this guy's taking things a little bit too far. And then he writes up his character history, which wound up being about 10 paragraphs. That was a second red flag. But thinking to myself, I was like, there are players out there that have no life, or, I don't want to insult anybody, but they really, really, really get into their characters, and maybe he was super excited to play, right? And he's like, okay, I'm like super excited. I can't stop thinking about this game. It's going to be great. I can't wait. And the only thing he could do before we actually started was write down on a document his character background. With long drawn out, this is what happened, and this is where I was, and blah, 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 which I really appreciate a player that does that. But I also understand. Okay, maybe I don't understand. Let me reword that. If you're just genuinely excited and you want to, you need a way to express how excited you are, um, and you wind up writing this down, that's pretty cool. That's like really cool. But if you are a, but if you're obsessed or can't separate yourself or you have no life, when I say you have no life, I mean you can't do anything other than play this game, then that's a problem, a mental health problem. I went through a period when I was younger, and he's younger, he's a younger gentleman. But I went through a period when I was young, when I made role playing characters, I tended to go a little overboard myself. But that was due to excitement. And like, I can't wait to get it. I can't wait till Thursday to play the game with all my friends. Not, I have nothing else to do, so I need to make this character background. Which we had already generated his background. He just wanted to flesh it out. I don't know. I don't know. I could be totally off base, but I was but looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, he's a rules lawyer, which means he probably does long drawn out backstories for all of his characters. And then the thing that got me going last night, which it shouldn't have, but like I said, I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and I think that made me a little bit extra sensitive. But he was drawing on the map. Um, I put a number on the map next to his line on the feast record. And he had drawn over that with a black splotch, basically covering the number. And then, after the black splotch was placed, he put the number in a different spot. I guess for his benefit. But I'm putting these numbers on this roster for my benefit, not for theirs. It really is for both. It's for both of us. But when he started moving, or I should say covering numbers that I wrote, I was like, what the hell is going on? You know, and that was just one thing that started to grind my gears. In addition to all the other stuff I talked about. Okay, well that's it. I don't want to talk about him any longer. He's not in my game anymore. I'm not going to have to worry about him being a rules lawyer. One of my other players, I have a little bit of a red flag, but less so. We'll see what happens with him. But I think this other player, I think he's genuinely excited to play. And he really likes getting into role playing. And I dig that. That's cool. I want him to role play more than I want him to concern himself with the rules. I want you to play your character, not the mechanics of the game. And I think he will. I think he'll be just fine. But I also noticed, because I was pretty content with just 4 players, right? 4 nights going on these quests is like the perfect number. But I noticed today, I say today, but really it was last night, that there was somebody asking if he could join the game. Now, he asked a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't really looked to see if there was anybody that, basically it was closed, so I wasn't really looking at the recruiting page. So I sent him a message saying, "Are you still interested? We got an opening." So maybe we'll have a replacement. Okay, so this is a BAR. That's a BAR. Wait. Oh, this guy should be with a bazooka. I think. Okay. This guy should be part of the anti-tank gun. I know there's people out there that think I might be overreacting or, get over it or whatever. I can't help feel the way I do. I try to be empathetic. Sometimes I'm not, and I know that. Sometimes I just don't give a fuck. If I was playing in someone else's game, I would do everything in my power to follow their directions. If they said, no rules lawyering, don't look up rules in the middle of the game, don't contradict me, I would say, no problem. I will close my book. I won't look at it. And because I know I'm that way, I expect my players to be like me. And I try to give everybody, a bunch of warnings because I don't want to kick anybody out of the game. Everybody's here just to have fun. Everybody has fun a different way. But if your way is disruptive to me or any of the other players, I'm going to ask you to stop, whatever that might be. Interrupting or singing on the stream, or whatever it might be. Okay. There's 2 bazookas. I think I'm going to sell him. I'm talking to myself. He's an officer. He's an officer. He's an officer. He is an officer. This guy's a machine gun crew member. He's an officer. I think he's a machine gun crew member as well. And I'm not sure, but I think this guy's an officer as well. We got machine guns and BARs. Ah, here's the other officer. There we go. So half of these officers are going to get the green pants. And the other half are going to get the field drab. So if there is a new player coming into the game, I don't think I'm going to make him be a squire like I did these other players. I'm just going to start him off straight as a knight. Which is kind of unfair to him because he won't get that opportunity to be a squire and to learn that. Um, learn the duty and the obligation of serving a knight. But that's okay. Yeah, I'm seeing some guys with Thompsons, but they don't have Thompson magazine pouches. That's all right. Oh, I think I'm at the bottom of the barrel on this paint. Looks like there's a lot of green pants and not a whole lot of brown pants. We'll figure it out. So I'm currently working on 2 commissions. This is not one of them. I've got an epic American Civil War commission and a 15 millimeter Napoleonic Prussian commission. What's cool about those 2 commissions are they're not in any hurry. They both have specifically said take your time, break it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate each of their commissions and miniatures that go up on the store. And these figures are store figures. That's 3. Let's put 1, 2, 3. We'll put him over there too. And this guy will be green. So I'm basically trying to do approximately 50%. It doesn't have to be. 4 of those figures go on the anti-tank gun, so they're not part of the 50%. So I started watching a new show this last week. It's called Murderbot. I thought it was going to be stupid. I said, I don't want to watch a show about a robot that runs around murdering people. You know, it's just another Friday the 13th or whatever. I don't want to watch that as a TV series. A one-off movie, maybe, but not really. That's just another trope, the robot has gone crazy and is trying to kill everyone. But it was suggested that I might like it, so I watched the first episode and I was like, oh my God, this is really good. And then I watched the second episode. And I basically am locked in. I think it's an awesome TV series. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Now, this might be a spoiler. Well, excuse me, a spoiler, but I'm going to try to be vague. It is about a robot. But it's not about him murdering everybody. It's kind of a misnomer. Because he's not a murder bot. He's a security robot. That's actually revealed in the first minute. First few seconds. He tells you that he's a security robot. And it's 100% not serious. It's 100% serious, but it's a comedy. I guess you might call it a sitcom. Situational comedy. Because a lot of stupid shit happens. Jokes are made. And it's funny. And I don't know what day it airs. Because by the time I went to see it, it had already had 2 episodes out. But I don't know what day they're released. So every day I've been checking to see if it's out. And as soon as episode 3 comes out, I'm going to be watching that. And laughing. Speaking of my emotions, or my lack of emotions, there's a knight in my game. He's an NPC. He's called Sir Bar, B-A-R, the Weeping Knight. And And that's not an insult. That's actually a compliment. Saying that, the women and the men actually even appreciate when a knight can have strong feelings and strong emotions like that. So he developed the nickname the Weeping Knight. And I was like, okay, that's cool lore. Okay, you're going over there. But talking about me, so there's a guy on YouTube. His name is Derek, which happens to be my name. Not me, though. Somebody else. His name is Derek. And he watches a lot of sci-fi. And he has a reaction channel, which basically means he watches it, reacts to the content on camera. This guy is so soft. He is so feminized. I didn't realize it really. I had suspicions subconsciously. I didn't even know I had these suspicions. But he watched an episode of Andor and started crying. Physically crying. His eyes were bloodshot. Tears were coming out of his eyes. His nose, he was sniffling. He's either a really good cry actor or he was really crying about something stupid in a TV series called Andor, which, first of all, is Star Wars. Second of all, you already know, if you're a fan, what happens to these characters. Okay, we got a machine gun there. Oh, this is the other one. Okay. There we go. Much better. Okay, so these two. Yeah, that's a tripod. What about this guy? I don't know who that guy should be with. I'm gonna not paint him. I'm not gonna paint these guys. Okay, we're gonna give these guys green pants. So I really had to hold my tongue or my fingers because I was about to type. I really wanted to get on there and tell this guy, grow a pair of balls. You know, you're so pussified. You're such a crybaby. But then I thought about it and I was like, I'm not going to do that. He might just be extremely sensitive about things, and I don't want to shame him. So I didn't type it in. I didn't bother. I said, okay. I can look past it. Not really. Mainly because now he didn't do this in these other series that I had watched, because I like watching him. He has some good insights on why certain things are happening, and you know, sometimes it's kind of cool to watch someone else watch a show that you really enjoy just to see how they interpret the same show that you just watched. I don't know, there's something fun about that, in my opinion. So I watched this guy in the past without any crying, but then he cries on Andor, this one episode. And it's not something that a man would cry about. It's something I would expect a woman to cry about. That's why I was thinking about writing him like, do you have a man in your life? Did your father leave you when you were a baby? But I didn't want to say any of that. Well, let me rephrase it. I wanted to say that, but I didn't say any of that. I didn't want to be a dick. So I said, nope, I'm not going to say it. And then I watched him again in another series. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was The Last of Us. And he cried again. And I was like, dude, you know this is not real, right? I understand that some people can really get locked in on a character and you can get emotional with that character. I get that. I do get that. So I kind of like gave him a pass. But his manhood is in question. Is that me not being sensitive? No, I think I am sensitive. That's why I identify this as a problem. And then it was all revealed to me. I watched another episode of something. I think it was Andor. He made a comment that made me realize that he's not in touch with reality. It made me realize that he has been brainwashed. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said the empire in Andor was the equivalent of Trump's America. Now, if you're a Trump hater, you might agree with him. If you're a Trump lover, you still might agree with him. But in reality, I am not living in an America that resembles in the slightest the empire. Now, if he said, and I see there's a few more comments before I move on to the next color, I see that there's some comments, and I will read them before we move on to Field Drab, which is right there for these guys. If he'd said that the Empire in Star Wars reminded him of Nazi Germany in the 1940s, I would have said, yes, I agree. That's exactly what they're supposed to be representing. They were even in Andor, they're driving these vehicles to do an inspection on some wheat fields. And if you took the fact that they were hovering away, they would look exactly like a Hanomag. They looked a lot like the 251. And their uniforms, SS, Nazi Germany, the hats they wear, it's all Nazi. I agree with that. But Trump, come on, man. Trump isn't the farthest from Nazi. Who's a Nazi? The Democrats. The Democrats are, well, not really Nazis. Let me back up. They're more like socialists. They're closer to communism than Nazis. And if you're a communist or a socialist, everything else looks like a Nazi. I guess, like I was saying, if you're a hammer and a sickle, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's why, whatever. Okay, I'm getting into political commentary. I need to drop out of that. Okay, so what are we saying here? We got Joseph. There we go. Joseph says, I can't read this, by the way. It's so far away, and that's why I swapped my glasses out. And my eyes are blurry. Hi, Derek. Did you receive my figures? Yes. I got them yesterday. And they're sitting over there on the table. Oh, let me rephrase this. I got a package yesterday. I assume they're your figures. They're on the table right over there. I haven't had a chance to open them up and start working on them yet. Okay, it sounds like. Hey. Yeah. You got more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Couple of type soup on sale.
Okay. Give me a thing, guys. Oh, okay.
And there's a Marshall bag in there too. Oops. You can leave this in.
Right, that was kind of heavy. Got it all glued in though. We're good. Yeah, I got your figures. I haven't opened up the package yet though. I plan to do that later. Once I take a look at the figures and I figure out exactly what's going on with them and all that, you'll get an invoice via PayPal. It'll come on your email most likely, and then we'll get started on those right away. Okay, now what was the last thing you said? Okay, so it sounds like you received the figures. Please let me know when you send me the PayPal invoice. Regards, Joe. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. If your email's in there, I'll drop you an email with the link. Plus PayPal should automatically send you a message once I create the invoice anyway. It'll come to your email. But I'll double down on it. So you got it one more week over there, huh? Yeah, till the 30th or so.
Yeah. I need you to do me a favor and clean that toilet. It's disgusting.
Okay.
I know it wasn't me. I hadn't been here.
Right.
I think it's already good anymore. I like to get out and cut the grass when you have the chance.
Okay. Yeah, I was noticing it was starting to get a little long.
A little. Yeah, it's like a foot tall out there.
Will do. Okay, so this is a field drab that I've had for a couple of years now. I've got another field drab up here somewhere. If this winds up, it sounds like it's still good. We'll see. Maybe I'll need to add some water to it or not. I don't know. I've got another field drab up here somewhere by another company. Might be AK. Um, okay, this is a field drab, but it's Model Air, so it's kind of watery. But I think I've got an AK field drab too. I just don't know where it is. Could that be it? Nope. It's close, but that's not it. That's also close, but not it. Mud brown. Service brown. That's pale. Wait, what is that? Oh, just brown. I know there's another field drab somewhere. I seem to have misplaced Misplaced it. And I think if my memory serves me right, it's an AK paint. That's mud. That's British. That's beige. Okay, I don't know where it is. So, instead of, we're going to use this one right here, the one I reached and got initially. Now, once I'm done and I put all my paints up and everything, I'll probably like, oh, here it is. That happens to me all the time. I find the paint after the fact. Okay. All right, that's fairly thick. Don't think I'm going to need this green. So what I'll do is I'll drop a little water in there, just to thin it out a tad. Oh, last comment before I start painting is thank you. All right, you're very welcome. Not this brush. That's the super big one. That's what she said. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. Okay, so we've been going for a couple hours. I could probably finish this brown. Yeah, I'm gonna do the super light khaki gray for his jacket. Um, I might do a uniform green if it's just a shirt. But if they're wearing a jacket, then I think I'll be painting it with the light, this color, stone gray. I think the shirts can also be that color too, but I don't think so. So before I go to that color, I think I'll do a little research. because I like to be accurate. I don't just slap colors on like a Warhammer figure. I base it all on historically accurate depictions of their uniforms, sometimes museum images, sometimes color plates. Just depends. Different strokes for different folks. Yeah, like this guy's got a jacket on. Yeah, my wife is uh, house sitting for a couple of her friends. Every year they go on vacation somewhere, and this year they left for 2 weeks, and she's been over there for a week already. Got one more week. Basically, I think the main reason is not for the house. They could just lock the house up, but it's because of their pets to make sure they're taken care of while they're gone. Did you get a bunch of sewing done?
Huh?
Did you get a bunch of sewing done?
Oh, I got a bunch of stuff cut out. Probably start sewing tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was hoping to get these guys done by today. I'm probably not going to get them done by today. Um, Believe it or not, World War II Americans are some of the easiest guys to paint. I mean, you can see this is all the colors I needed. I should really say, in general, all World War II figures are pretty easy to paint. The only thing that kind of slows me down a little bit is P dot camouflage. Um, Not hard to paint. It's just a lot of little minor dots and small dots and stuff. I think I actually have a couple of tutorials on how to paint P dot. Okay, he has a magazine pouch for a Thompson. Okay. I thought about painting these guys flesh first and then work out from skin. Um, there's a couple of different techniques, and they all give you a slightly different result. Um, One of them is the skin out technique, um, where as you paint your model, you start with the skin, the face, the hands, whatever, and then you paint the next layer, which would be like t-shirts and underwear, if that was showing. And then you paint the dress shirt, socks, and then from there you paint the boots, the jacket, and then from there you would paint like the hair, and then after that you might paint the helmet. Basically, you work your way out from the flesh. That's one technique. Another one is just the opposite, into the flesh. So you would start with like the helmet and the weapon. And then you would paint things like his load bearing equipment, and then the jacket, and then the gaiters or whatever, and then his boots, and then finally you'd paint the flesh. I learned that technique about 15 years ago, something like that. It's a really, really good technique. It works really well if, and it only works really well if you prime black and you're not planning on doing black lining. Because that technique generates black lining automatically. So you don't have to later go back in and do black lining. It'll automatically be on there. And then there's another technique called color shading, which I'm going to be honest with you, I almost never use that technique. Um, there are certain things that, like certain individual items on the model that I might use it on, but overall, for the entire model, I won't use that technique. That's a technique that you paint by the numbers. You start with the lightest color in your lineup. Like if I had a lineup right here, I would start with the lightest, the closest to white. And I would paint that on whatever item it is. And then I would gradually get darker and darker and darker until I got to black last. Um, but with the modern mixture of paints and the way they interact with each other, that technique is no longer in my arsenal. It's pretty much been phased out, faded. It has been phased out. I don't use that technique. Now, I do use that technique when it comes to very light colors like yellows. If I'm going to paint something yellow, I'll pre-paint it, not prime, but I'll pre-paint it white. Or a new uh, technique I learned was to pre-paint it pink. So if I'm going to be painting, let's say, a Napoleonic plume for my Voltigeurs or whatever, let's say I'm going to paint them yellow. Um, I would paint those plumes pink and then come back in later and paint them yellow. Because apparently yellow does go on top of pink very well. But that's only if you have a yellow that doesn't cover very well. Another thing you could do is paint two coats. You can go yellow and then yellow again. And then if you need to, yellow a third time. So knowing what colors I'm going to be using on a model will kind of predetermine what primer color I use and what technique I plan to use. Because they all interact in different ways. I've been watching a lot of negative press when it comes to Star Citizen. I don't know if you guys are in the loop with a computer game called Star Citizen. It's been in development for over a decade. They've earned over $822 billion. And the game is not out yet. It is out as an alpha, so you can play it and test it, but it's not the finished product. But that's not the big problem that everybody's having right now. For the last couple of weeks, there's been a big uproar in the community, and you heard me talking about being emotional. I think these people are just overreacting. But they're complaining that they're selling stuff on this website. Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah, there's a they're saying that the game has become pay to win. And I'm not in the communities, um I'm not on their side, because that game has always been pay to win. It's not new. And I say that because you buy a game package, but you cannot buy just a game package. You have to include a ship. And you get to pick and choose which ship you want to pick based on how much money you want to spend and what job you want to do in the game. So right there, you're getting a ship that you didn't earn. You paid for it on the website. Oh, okay. All right. Back over there, take care of the dogs. I think they're dogs. Um, so, like me, I'm just going to say, I'm going to use me as an example. I started this game back in 2014, right? 11 years ago. And I paid for the basic bare minimum that you could pledge. I think it was like $50. And you get this ship, and you fly around, and you really couldn't do anything. It was very limited on what you could do with that ship that I bought. But they had a fighter on their website. You could buy a fighter, and then now you could have a fighter. So I went in and I bought a fighter. And this was all taking place before you could buy it in game. Because basically there was no way to earn money and nothing to spend it on. But now that's not the case. You can actually earn your ships in game. I think you can earn all of them. You don't have to buy anything but a starter package and the basic starter ship. And then you can gradually build up and go. And that's kind of the direction they want the game to go. But there's people like me out there that have this fighter. And a guy just starting with a starter ship could not stand up to me because I would destroy him. For two reasons. One, because I've been playing the game since 2014. And secondly, because I've got a ship designed to blow other ships up. Is that pay to win? I think so. I think it's pay to win. And then there's somebody that has bought this heavy fighter. And he could probably blow me up. Is it pay to win? Yeah, probably. I mean, he paid real money for a ship in the game. And then above that, there's like multi-crew ships you could get where you and your friends get in there and you got these giant guns and they could blow stuff up and they could carry huge amounts of cargo, which those fighters can't carry. Is that pay to win? It is pay to win. It's been pay to win since the inception. The ships are pay to win. Okay, but that's just something that the community accepts as their funding model. They're going to charge for ships, and they're going to be okay with that for some reason. But you know what you're getting into when you start. You know what's happening. So in the last couple of weeks, they released an add-on. It's called a blade. What it is, it's a computer board that you plug into your ship, and it gives your ship some tweaking. I was about to say enhanced abilities, but that's not true. It does improve one thing, but it takes away from another thing. So basically, it's kind of like a modular adjustment, right? It tweaks what you own on your ship or how it functions. And I think it's like 2%, 3%, something like that. Nothing grandiose, not like 10% or better. It's like 2 or 3%. And think of it like a slider. If your base ship is in the middle, it moves the slider either one way towards speed or towards maneuverability. But if you get the maneuverability, you lose speed. And if you move towards speed, you lose maneuverability. So it's not really an add-on. It's just something you can buy to modify your ship. Do you need it? No. Do people want it? Yeah, people want it. They go out and they buy it. They 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 hope it helps them in the dogfight or whatever. Um, the people that are complaining are how do I explain this? They are people that have spent so much money on this game on ships, and I'm talking thousands, plural, dollars on a computer game. Think about that. And I'd like to call these guys whales. So these whales have spent thousands of dollars on owning like 5, 6, or more ships. They, like me personally, I don't consider myself a whale, but I do have like 5 ships. They're just all really cheap, junky, nothing super special about them, right? I mean, I got a fighter, I got a cargo ship, I got an exploration ship, I got another fighter. Um, one of the fighters was given to me, so I didn't spend money for it. But so these whales have realized, the ones that are complaining are the ones that have realized that they've spent so much money, they don't want to spend any more on a blade. Well, guess what? I'm not going to spend any money on a blade because it doesn't give me what I want, right? I pretty much have spent all the money I'm going to spend on this game, right? I've spent, now I hate to admit this. This is kind of a dig against me, but I've spent over $900 total on this game. There was a time, a long time ago, that I was a subscriber. They have this, you can join and be a subscriber to give your money monthly to the company to help their development of the game. I did that for a year or so. I bought a couple of ships that, a couple $100. And over time, I bought some paints. I bought some, which is basically skins, cosmetic stuff. I got some subscriber flair, which basically means if you're a subscriber during a certain month, they release these subscriber flair during that month. And if you're a subscriber, you get it. So you get all this free stuff, which is not free because you had to pay to be a subscriber. So I got a bunch of subscriber flair from the old days. Nothing new. So you could say I spent just over, in like 11 years, almost 12 years, I spent $900 on this game. I know that. I know that's a lot of money. And I don't plan to spend any more money on this game let me rephrase it. I'll spend more money on this game, but I'm not going to spend it on a ship. When the game comes out, I'll earn money in the game, and I'll go to the store in the game, and I'll buy a ship, right? If I need to. I don't need to. I've already got like 5 ships. Why do I need to buy a 6th? But there's a guy, hypothetical, there's just some guy somewhere. He bought a mining ship. One that mines, digs for rocks, where he can sell them. If he wants that ship and he bought that ship, that's great. But it's pay to win. He's paying to win at the mining game. If you ask me to go mine, I can't. I don't have a ship capable of doing that. I would have to make money, earn it in game, and then go buy a ship and go mine. Or I'd have to get a hand mining laser, which can't really mine anything that I've found. Only tiny things can be mined with a hand laser. So when the blades came out, this guy, this whale, or this guy that's already spent money to pay to win, says, I'm not spending money to pay to win. This is ridiculous. You're a scam. You're trying to take money from me. You know, you're trying to milk us dry. And then the community gets behind this loser and says, yeah, they're scamming us out of our money. Because this game's not out yet. And the only place to get these blades is on the website. So they're cheating us out of being able to earn it in game. So then Cloud Imperium comes out with a post saying, sorry about that. When we release additional items on the store, what we'll do is we'll also release them in-game at the same time. And people just lost their shit. They're like, oh my God, they're not, taking it back. They're going to let it stay. If you want it, you got to pay money for it. Now, I'm a white knight. That's what they call people that agree with the company and not the community. But this is my thought process. Cloud Imperium Games is a game company. Emphasis on company. Trying to pay bills. They have rent. They have servers. And they have to pay for these servers because they go through AWS. They have buildings that house their computer programmers and their marketing team and everything else. So they've got primarily rent, salaries, servers, the list goes on. They got to buy computers, all different kinds of things. Just like any other company in the world. Game development, even though it's taken them way too long, and I can get behind that. I can say, yes, it has taken way too long. But they're charging money so they can pay their bills. That's why I white knight for them. Only because it costs a lot of money to develop this game. They're spending money every year on marketing, on servers, on rent. So just because they raised over $800 billion does not mean that they've got some cash cow person like Chris Roberts rolling in a mound of gold coins saying, all these players that give us money are suckers. No, he's not saying that. What he's saying is, hey, we have no money. What if we make these blades that maybe give some players a slight modification, but doesn't really help them at all? So they can't say it's pay to win. And we'll charge like $15. If they want to buy it, they can buy it. If they don't want to buy it, they don't have to buy it. It's not a requirement to play the game. Yeah, that sounds good. Do you think there'll be any backlash? No, because it's really not a moderate. It's really not a plus. It doesn't really help you. But it does let you to customize your ship so that you can play it the way you want. That's a good thing. Players like that. Yeah, let's sell it. And just like a ship, what we'll do is we'll sell it. And then after it's been on our store for a few months, then we'll put it in game and let people buy it in game. Yeah, everybody should be happy. That's what they're saying. And then everybody's up in arms over this. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. The game has always been pay to win, and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, they've just switched to pay to win. And I'm like, it's always been pay to win. You buy ships. Some ships are better than others. really hard getting to this guy's face. That ammo belt is in the way. That's why sometimes I will paint figures individually on a popsicle stick, and then once they're painted, then I'll glue them down onto a base so I can avoid the whole I had to contort myself to get around something. But we got it. We're good. I'm going to switch flesh colors. Right there was the Ionic medium flesh. I just painted on these guys. Now I'm going with Adam's beige pink for these guys. But not straight beige pink. I'm going to put it in the same slot as the medium flesh. And it should lighten the tone just a little bit. Just a little bit. I really like these Westwind models, Berlin or Bust. Not because they're great models or anything, but they are pretty good. But they're all metal, which is a plus, in that I didn't have to assemble them, except for that anti-tank gun. But they give you different poses than what you're used to from like Perry or Warlord games. Now, Victrix, I'm really looking forward to getting those German World War II plastics. It's like a whole platoon in a bag with support elements. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that'll be stellar. And I'm not really paying attention to where I'm painting, because I haven't done the jackets yet. So it's okay if I have a little over painting onto either their helmet or their jacket. That's why I decided to do flesh right now, because I wanted to get it done before I had to do the collars. The only thing that I'm concerned with are the hands, because they might be, like this one, is resting on his pants. So I just have to be careful not to paint the pants. That looks good. So these flight blades, I'm okay with Cloud Imperium selling them. I think it's an overreaction by the community. Now, I say that, but there are people buying the blades. So I think, and I don't have any way to really double check this, but I think it's a vocal minority. There was a post on Spectrum, which is basically their Reddit for Star Citizen. There was a post on there saying, wah, 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 right? Flight blades, scam, taking our money, blah, 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 all the same old shit, right? And it was upvoted, this complaint was upvoted like 400 times. And I'm thinking to myself, if it was that big of a deal, it should be upvoted thousands of times. How many people are playing this game? If they've made $800 billion, not 800 million, billion with a B. Wait, is that right? Is it 800 million? No, I think it's billion. Yeah, they're making like 100 million a day. Something like that. There's got to be more than 400 players. The community is a vocal, the ones that are complaining are a minority. But they're complaining a lot about it. Like, oh man, I can't believe this. Let's make a YouTube video. I almost want to. I don't know. And that's another thing. Just based on my own personal attitude, I consider myself a content creator. I stream live. Sometimes I'll record and I'll upload various videos like Skyrim or whatever, Star Citizen. And I don't feel like it's necessary for me to get online and give my opinion. Or I should say counter opinion. And I believe I'm not alone in this. There's probably a lot of content creators that are silent, like myself. And that's where the vocal minority comes from. There's probably a lot of content creators that have the same opinion that I do about these blades and are basically like, I don't have a problem with this. I think this is good. I think the reason why I think it's good is because it allows Cloud Imperium to continue the development of a game that I want to eventually play, namely Squadron 42. Squadron 42 is getting zero funding, but Cloud Imperium Games still needs to make that game. They got to get money somewhere. They don't have a big publisher giving them billions of dollars, so they have to get that money somewhere. So Star Citizen makes money by selling blades and ships, and that money goes into making Squadron 42. Which also prolongs or delays the Star Citizen game. Because, like, more than half of their money is going to Squadron 42. Okay, I've harped enough of that. Oh, the reason why, yeah, damn. The reason why I even got onto computer gaming at all was because there's a new game coming out in like 3 days called, oh no, I can't remember what it's called. I want to say Curse, but that's not right. I think it's the something scroll, Curse of the Scroll, or something like that. Something like that. What it is an Arthurian um, game that takes place in Avalon. When I saw the trailer for it, it looked really good, but I was like, oh, is this the new Skyrim modded game? Is this Morrowind or Oblivion modified for with the Skyrim engine? Because it looks really good, and it looks almost exactly like Skyrim. Because there's a few demons that you have to deal with, and some undead creatures and stuff. And I was like, oh, those are straight out of Skyrim. They just have 4K textures, and they look really, really good. And then at the very end, it said Curse of the Scroll or something like that from Avalon. And I was like, Avalon, isn't that um, Arthurian legend? And so it's not exactly Skyrim, but it looks like it. And it looks like it was professionally done. Um, so I downloaded the demo because there is a demo you can download. I downloaded that this morning. And I think after lunch, I might jump into the demo, live stream it. I don't know how long the demo is or if it will even be fun. But if it's fun, I might buy it. You know? You know what I mean. My nose just started running. So it's after 12. So I'm going to finish this last guy's flesh. I'll read whatever chats I might have missed because I'm sure there are some. And then that will be the end of the stream for today. All right, he's all good. Flesh is done on all of them. Pants are done on all of them. Gaiters are done. Boots are done. So basically they're done from the belt down and their faces and hands. And here's the 2 fleshes. Not going to need them anymore. All right. So now I also wanted to take a break to do a little bit of research to see the color of their shirts, not just their jackets. Because the shirts might also be gray. But I'll do that off camera. Man, I got a runny nose. What's going on? All right. Let me see what our chat says before I let you guys go. Thank you. Okay, so I've read all the chats. All right. Super duper. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me, watching me for a while, and painting these Americans. I was hoping that I'd get them done, but yeah, that's just not going to happen. Later this afternoon or evening, I'll probably do their jackets and helmets, packs. I might actually get them done because that's not much more to do on them, really. I think. Well, I got all these colors to do, but it should go by pretty quick. Okay, I don't need this field gray. Field gray. Field drab. What's the other one? Field drab. Okay. Yep, I've only got like 8 more colors to go. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. You guys take care. I'll probably be honest with you. I'll probably be on again tomorrow. Which is not normally a day that I do my live streams, but since I've got the time available, I think I'm going to be on tomorrow. All right, guys. You guys take care.